Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the BhagavatSanga program, where we have currently started a new theme. Where devotees are presenting is prayers of Sukhdev Goswami, and that's from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, verses 12 through 23. And today we have a wonderful devotee presenting, Prashanth Prabhu. Welcome, Prashanth Prabhu. Thank you for presenting.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna devotees, Nara Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Let me share. Devotees, can you see my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can see.
Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Mataji. First off, I'm not qualified to present these prayers, but for my purification, I'm doing this. So thank you for this opportunity to present Meena Mataji, Mataji, Prabhu, Prabhu. Thank you. With that, we will just do some quick invocation prayers. Vajrakalpa. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravan Charni Namo Shri Shunyavadi Lashrakti Deshtagi Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram. And because we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll just invoke auspiciousness. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we will start with just some background about Sukhdev Goswami. So Sukhdev Goswami, as we know, we've heard many times, was a parrot of Srimati Radharani, who used to take Radharani's messages to Lord Krishna. So as a parrot, it's already, Sukhdev Goswami was fully engaged in devotional service and serving the Lord and serving Srimati Radharani. And when Srimati Radharani departed for the spiritual world, she told Sukha to always hear the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So, Sukha the parrot, he flew to my Kailash, where Lord Shiva was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to Mother Parvati. And, the pastime is that Mother Parvati fell asleep, and, Sukha continued to make the noises that Mother Parvati was making. And when Lord Shiva ended the Srimad Bhagavatam, Mother Parvati started apologizing, but then Lord Shiva understood that somebody else is making the noises. And he finds Sukha the parrot there, and then Lord Shiva chases him away, thinking that he's unqualified to hear. And Sukha the parrot, he goes to Vyasadev's home, where he flies into the mouth of Pitika, who is Vyasadev's wife, and he stays there for 16 years, afraid of coming out because he feels that he will get entangled in material nature, and eventually he comes out and he becomes Sukhdev Goswami. And the important point here is Sukhdev Goswami became qualified to recite Srimad Bhagavatam and speak Srimad Bhagavatam after hearing from great devotees Lord Shiva and Vyasadeva. So I'll go to the next verse. So some more background, right, is he appears when Maharaj Parikshit is about to pass away. He appears to recite Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit. And the important thing is Maharaj Parikshit was qualified because he was the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna, and he spent his whole life engaged in devotional service. And Sukhdev Goswami explains to Maharaj Parikshit, what he should do to control his mind, who to worship based on his desires, and that, ultimately, if he wants to achieve liberation, he must worship Lord Sri Hare, Lord Krishna. And listening to all this, Maharaj Parikshit then asks Sukhdev Goswami to describe how the Supreme Lord engages his different energies and different expansions in maintaining and again winding up the material world. So how the Lord uses his energies. So then Sukhdev Goswami is about to answer, and before he answers, he recites these prayers to first pay obeisances to the Lord. And he does this to invoke auspiciousness and remembrance, and he's asking the Lord for mercy to recite Srimad Bhagavatam properly. And Prabhupada quotes the verse, Sarvasya chaham yadi sannivisto matasmiti jnanam apohanam cha vedasya sarverahami vivedyo vedanta krit veda videha chaham, which is 15:15 in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says that from him come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So this the same remembrance here that Sukhdev Goswami is asking for, so that he can remember Srimad Bhagavatam properly and instruct Maharaj Parikshit properly. So I will then go to the verses. The first few verses, I know devotees have spoken a lot on, so I will go quickly and then we'll dive into the later verses. So I'll recite really quickly. Shri Shukho Vacha Nama Parasmai Purushaya Bhusai Sad Udbhavas Sthana Nirod Alilaya Grita Shakti Tritayaya Dehinam Antar Bhavayanu Palakas Yavartmane Palaks Yavartmane. Sukhdev Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who for the creation of the material world accept the three modes of nature. He is the complete whole residing within the body of everyone, and his ways are inconceivable." So this verse is, speaking just that as a conditioned soul, we cannot conceive the Lord, right? It's impossible for us to understand the dualities and the achintya Veda tattva of the Lord, achintya potency of the Lord. It's inconceivable. So the only way we can realize it is through devotional service. It's that he is the only thing that we can understand, from just the verse and reading, is that the Lord can be there and here at the same time. He can be large and small. He's everywhere, but also within us as Paramatma. All of his energies support everything, but he is aloof from everything. So that inconceivableness is the only thing we can understand. But other than that, unless we purify ourselves and become realized, we can't, through Bhakti Yoga, we can't understand the Lord's potency. So then the next verse, Uyo Namaha Sad Vrijina Chides Atam Asambhavaya Akila Sattva Murtaye Sam Puna Paramaham Saya Asbrame Vyavastitanam Anum Anumukya Dasu say, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the form of complete existence and transcendence, who is the liberator of the pious devotees from all distress and the destroyer of further advances in atheistic temperament of the non-devotee demons. From the transcendentalists who are situated in the topmost spiritual perfection, he grants their specific destinations. So in this verse, this reminded me of Prithu Maharaj's prayers, where Prithu Maharaj asks, Krishna to treat him as though, as a father would treat his child, and do what is best for him without the child asking. So this verse here is explaining the same concept, where it's explaining how the Lord is, protects devotees. He's a father, kind father, even when he punishes us, he's a kind father. And ultimately, he's destroying what, if we surrender unto him, he will help us destroy all of our bad qualities and anarthas, and he will protect all the good qualities that we have. And externally, right, it's like the verse says, he will protect the devotees and destroy, annihilate the miscreants. So this verse is also in reference to Bhagavad Gita. It's our Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Kadushritam Dharma Samsthapanarthaya Sambhavami Yuge verse, right? So the Sambhavami Yuge verse is the last line here, that for transcendentalists who are situated in this topmost spiritual perfection, he grants their specific destination. So whatever whatever we desire in serving Krishna, he will give that to us, to help reestablish Dharma. So the next verse is 14. Namo namaste stu Shrabhaya Statvatam Vidura Kastaya Muhu Yoginam Nirasta Samayati Sayena Radesha Swadamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, who is the associate of the members of the Yadu dynasty and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He's the supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual worlds, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There's no one equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. So the main takeaway from this verse and from Prabhupada's purport is that the Lord is a person, and the Lord has is a personal form. It's talking about how he's the supreme enjoyer of both material and spiritual worlds, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. So what we can take away is that that's again the inconceivable potency, but also that the Lord has his own form. He's a supreme enjoyer, and he has his own abode, and he's a person. So we go to the next verse. Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat ikshanam, yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat arhanam, lokasya sad yog vidunoti kalmasam tasmai subhadra avase namo namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. So this, this verse is Sukhdev Goswami's perspective, right? He's summarizing that that Lord is the recipient of every activity that he has and every activity that we should do. So we should, this is basically how should we go about our day. How should we please the Lord? We should do it with glorification, with remembrance, with prayers, hearing, worship. And that's the only way we can cleanse all the effects of sins that we have from countless lifetimes. So, it's there's this is the only way that we can this is the only way we should glorify the Lord, and then this is the only way we can glorify the Lord. Anything else that we do is really just, it's not connected to Krishna, so it's a waste of time. So and from here I'll go deeper into the verses. So we'll start with detailed realizations here. So Vikakshana yacharano pasadanat sangam vyudasiyo bhagayato antaratmana vidantihi brahmagatim gata klamas tasmai subhadra sravase namo namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances again unto the all auspicious Lord Shri Krishna, the highly intellectual, simply by surrendering onto his lotus feet, are relieved of all attachments to present and future existences, and without difficulty progress towards spiritual existence. So this verse, Sukhdev Goswami is explaining how we should connect everything to Krishna for it to be transcendental, transformational, and everlasting. Otherwise, whatever that we are putting our time into is material, and it's only for temporary material gain. So in the verse he says, the highly intellectual are relieved of all attachments to present and future existences. So that's our karma, right? Our past karma, our future karma that's in, that hasn't manifested yet, and then whatever current karma that we are doing. And all of this karma can, Krishna can take away if we simply surrender onto his lotus feet. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that whatever, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have any self-interest, because as a spirit soul, we have some tendencies and we have some interests and we have some inclinations, and those are from if we trace it back, it's from when we originally served Krishna and we had some service. So whatever propensities that we had in that service are, have been conditioned and changed into whatever desires and self-interest that we have now. So what we should do is we should take that self-interest that we might have, or inclination, or tendency or propensity, and dovetail it with devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord. So another way Prabhupada explains it is, Krishna has given us all of these qualities. He's given us this some intelligence. He has given us, obviously all of these material things as well, but more so from like a non-material perspective, right? So he's given us some tendencies and qualities and abilities to do certain things. So if we use those qualities for our own benefit, it's basically the same as like stealing them, right? And it's Prabhupada also quotes like the Ishavasan idam sarvam principle, where in Ishopanishad it said, you should only use what the Lord allots to you, and you should use it for maintaining yourself, and you shouldn't strive to, you shouldn't be greedy, you shouldn't try to use something that's not yours, or you shouldn't use something that it is ill-gotten. So similarly here, right, it's whatever the qualities that Krishna has given us, we should use it for Krishna's service, and then it will purify us. But if we just use it for our own benefit, for some sense gratification, then it's going to continue to bind us to the material world. So Prabhupada also says that, it doesn't mean we should disregard our material nature, right? We're in the material world, and we have a material body to maintain. So we must still maintain our material body, but focus on Krishna. And in the interest of time, I will just go through the quick realizations here. So this verse, let me read that translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Krishna again and again, because the learned sages, the great performers of charity, the great workers of distinction, the great philosophers, mystics, the great chanters of Vedic hymns, and the great followers of Vedic principles cannot achieve any fruitful result without dedication of such great qualities to the service of the Lord. So this verse again, right, it's here, I think it pasted twice. But this verse is what Krishna is saying in this verse is, whatever we do, it doesn't happen without Krishna's will. So it's anything that we do, even a blade of grass, right, requires Krishna's sanction to move. So similar to what Sukhdev Goswami is actually doing here, he's not only doing it, but he's saying it as well. So Sukhdev Goswami, before he starts to explain how the energies of the Lord work, he is glorifying the Lord, and he's attributing everything to the Lord. So similarly in this verse, he's saying that all the great sages, everybody, if they don't recognize the Lord in what they're doing, then it's material. So we have to recognize the Lord in anything that we do, and the same way, right, we should be grateful to the Lord for what we've gotten. And in the last verse, it talked about how we should use those, whatever we have gotten, in dovetailed with Krishna. So same thing here is anything that we can achieve comes because we have Krishna's mercy. So we should be grateful for that, and we should never think that we are the doer. So I'll go to the next verse. So in this verse, I'll just summarize really quickly. Sukhdev Goswami talks about how there's different nations in the world at the time, and that all of these nations, they can be saved if they surrender unto Krishna, and they can be purified by taking shelter of the devotee of the Lord. So the realization here is that this is very similar to our ISKCON movement and then the Sankirtan movement, right? Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have embodied this verse here, that no matter what our background is, and no matter what our consciousness is, and what the environment is, and our whatever, wherever we are born, right, is indicative of what our desire was in our past life, what our consciousness was, and we are in that situation because of our desire. So no matter what that previous desire was, anywhere in the world that you are, we have the ability to go back to Godhead if we take shelter of Krishna. So Sukhdev Goswami is saying that regardless of what village or nation that you were a part of, you can go back to Godhead just by surrendering out to the Lord. And there's no requirement to surrender, right? And Sri Prabhupada says, similarly, there's no requirement for not surrendering. So what that means is, just because you were born in, a particular caste or family doesn't make you a Vaishnava by it's not Vaishnava by birth. It is Vaishnava by action and consciousness and character. So next verse. So in this verse, my realization was that Krishna protects those who revere him, right? This is in this verse is what I took away is it's like the different rasas. Krishna protects those who revere him, who want to be a servant to him, who want to be a friend of him, who want to be a parent, or who want to be amorous to him. And the best way to build a relationship with him is through devotional service, which is nothing but sacrifice. Lord Krishna is anyway the Lord of all sacrifices. So whatever sacrifice that we do, he is the recipient. And by doing those sacrifices, we can develop a relationship with him. When we think of him and do those sacrifices, right? So when we chant, we sing, we glorify, it's because devotees understand that he's the Purusha or supreme enjoyer. So we should forego whatever desire of our senses for the pleasure of the Lord, because in that way we can get Krishna's protection. He gives us intelligence, so we should use it properly. And if we utilize what intelligence that we have for sense enjoyment, then we are just fools, like Prabhupada says. So this last few verses, that what I took away is, devotees will follow the process and surrender unto Krishna because they know he's the ultimate protector and true giver of freedom. And if we are attached to something other than Krishna, then our goal becomes not to please Krishna, but to please ourselves or achieve some specific purpose. So when that happens, we will not want to surrender to Krishna. And if we don't want to surrender to Krishna, we will always be away from Krishna. So a devotee is always thinking of Krishna, and he knows that as a spirit soul, he's eternally the servitor of Krishna and one who is always engaged in Krishna's service. So as a result, the only choice we have is to always think of Krishna, follow in the footsteps of authorities, and then perform devotional service. So I'll go to just 1 minute. So in 22, it talks about knowledge comes from the Lord because we are part and parcel of the Lord. When we are conditioned, we forget, and then we must wipe away our conditioning to remember. So Sukhdev Goswami is, he's using himself as an example because he's praying to the Lord saying that, hey, Lord, please help me remember and recite your glories. So we should do the same thing. And the important thing here is in the process of remembrance, the Lord is in control. We are not in control. So the only way we will remember is if the Lord lets us remember. And the only way the Lord will do that is if he thinks that you're sufficiently surrendered, and only way we can surrender is through surrendering onto Guru and through devotional service. So last couple of points that I will make are, it's just, we should think of, the Sukhdev Goswami ultimately says, right, that we should think of ourselves as an instrument. And we should think of ourselves as a vehicle for the Lord and not take credit for anything. We should always be grateful for Lord Krishna. And ultimately, that's what Sukhdev Goswami is praying for. It's that the Lord who inspired Brahma to create this world, who spoke the Vedas, who helped Brahma establish this Parampara system that Sukhdev Goswami is coming from, be pleased with him, because he wants, Sukhdev Goswami wants to present that same truth for the benefit of Maharaj Parikshit and for all of us. So my two takeaways were, we should always evaluate, will the Lord be pleased with me? And we should always cry out that may the Lord be pleased with me. And the reason for that is, like Sukhdev Goswami in all of his verses, he says, may the Lord be pleased with me. So with that, devotees, we will end here. Thank you again for this opportunity. Please forgive me if I made any mistakes. And Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashanth Prabhu, for the wonderful presentation. You covered so many wonderful points, actually. Of course, you gave the essence of your presentation is that whatever we do, we should be looking out to see if Krishna is pleased with what we are doing, and always be grateful and consider ourselves to be an instrument in the hands of the Lord, and that nothing happens because of us, but it's Krishna. Nothing moves without Krishna's will. So there are so many important points from each of the verses you went through. I can go through quickly few of them as I recall and as I've noted down. You, of course, in the beginning explained Sukhdev Goswami's position as a parrot of Srimati Radharani in the spiritual world, and we connected also in the the verses, as you went through the verses, how Prithu Maharaj's prayers, are similar. In one of the verse 13, you said that how he prays to the Lord that he knows what's best for us or for him. Similarly, Sukhdev Goswami is praying like that here, and he's praying that you connected the word with the verse of Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya Sadhunam, how Krishna is the protector of devotees, destroyer of the atheistic non-devotees, how he has a personal form and how he is the supreme enjoyer, enjoying in his abode as a supreme person, and how to please the Lord is through glorification, through service. That's the only way we can glorify the Lord, and how to connect everything in the service of the Lord, or connect with Krishna. Otherwise, it's simply a waste of time. And because anything that we do will be temporary and it's building karma. Prabhupada, you also explained that in the purport, he says, as a spirit soul, we have our tendencies and our inclinations, but we should dovetail all of them in Krishna's service. So, and use our intelligence, our talents in Krishna's service. So thank you, Prabhu. I know I have not done justice in covering all the points, but wonderful class. Thank you so much. Because you were giving class and Veena Mata is not here, I'm doing the service of doing the MC here. Thank you. Thank you, devotees, for joining. We'll meet again next Wednesday with the same theme, prayers of Sukhdev Goswami. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. I quickly want to introduce Bhavna Mataji. She joined today. She came to visit from Ahmedabad to her brother who lives in Avery Ranch. So I saw her in the morning chanting in our neighborhood. She was going on a japa walk. So we spoke, and she's excited to visit our temple.
Welcome, Bhavna Mataji. Yeah, thank you, Mataji, for connecting her. Yeah.
Welcome.